I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Dick Durbin urged lawmakers to support the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act on the Senate floor Thursday. Durbin appealed to his Republican colleagues, saying a yes vote on this bill would be a way to consider amendments on, quote, gun safety, school safety, and to make us a safer nation. This vote comes as recent mass shootings in Texas and Buffalo have gripped the nation. Listen in as the Majority Whip describes the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act.
We're going to consider H.R. 350, which is legislation which I introduced some time ago. I want to describe it because it's been inaccurately described before, and let members know what they're voting on. First, what does it relate to? Domestic terrorism. Is that a federal crime? You bet it is. And this particular bill makes reference to that crime. Hate crimes refers to that too. Is that a real crime? It's a federal crime, and we refer specifically. So what new crimes are created in this bill? None, not one. What we're doing is asking the federal agencies who have the responsibility of national security to give us timely reports on the incidents of domestic terrorism. And we say to them, there are categories which the FBI has already established of domestic terrorism. In those categories, I'd like to spell out a couple of them to you so it's pretty clear what we're going after here. Racially and ethnically motivated violent extremism, anti-government, anti-authority violent extremism, animal rights, environmental violent extremism, abortion-related violent extremism, and others. So those are already categories of domestic terrorism that the FBI reports on. What we are saying is give us those reports in a timely fashion so we can see the incidents of these forms of extremism and the commission of crimes. But there is one correction that we're making that is very important. During the Trump administration, they eliminated reference in this list of categories of domestic terrorism of white supremacist activity. The reason why it's important for us to include that is that we have the sworn testimony of the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation that this is a category of crime and terrorism in America that is metastasizing, his word, metastasizing. And so we believe it's important that we be given information about the incidents of violent extremism, domestic terrorism, that relates to this type of activity, this white supremacy. I will tell you, it's not an imagined crime. We see the reality of it way too often. We just saw it 2 weeks ago in Buffalo, New York. That shooter put his so-called manifesto on the internet and declared, among other things, his support for the Great Replacement Theory. The Great Replacement Theory is a thinly veiled white supremacist theory that tries to suggest that immigrants to America are somehow only arriving at the expense of those already here, particularly white Americans. That sort of theory has been out there since the days of the Ku Klux Klan and maybe even before it, but it is white supremacy. It inspired this man to do terrible things in Buffalo and kill innocent people at that grocery store. So we're asking the FBI, give us this information. We'll draw conclusions as we will, but that's basically it. No new crime is created, and nor is any new authority being created in the process. I think that is a critical element. But there's one other thing that is part of this exercise this morning in voting for H.R. 350. The majority leader, Senator Schumer, after the events in Uvalde, Texas, declared that we are going to try to reach out on a bipartisan basis to come up with legislation to deal with gun safety and safety in schools. His first effort to do this is this bill. What we're voting on is a motion to proceed to the bill. He has invited colleagues on a bipartisan basis to come forward and to offer their amendments in the field of gun safety and school safety. That's why this motion to proceed is more than just the bill I described. It is an opportunity for amendments on the floor. This morning I did an interview with CNN, and they talked about the fact that we're leaving for a week for Memorial Day to honor our veterans and be home and then return. Why aren't we staying and working? Well, here's a chance for us to make it clear that we are going to work on what happened in these terrible tragedies at Uvalde, Texas, and in Buffalo, New York, and so many others. So I'm appealing to my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle. If you have any ideas, and I hope you do, for gun safety, school safety, and to make this a safer nation, this is the vehicle to do it. A yes vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 350 is your opportunity to open a process where we can consider amendments. Senator Schumer was very explicit. He invited Democrats as well as Republicans to come forward with their best ideas on a bipartisan basis. And isn't that what the people of the country are actually asking for more than anything? That we roll up our sleeves and face this challenge, which has taken so many innocent lives. In the newspaper yesterday, in the New York Times, they did a feature on those wonderful little kids and the teachers who lost their lives in Uvalde, Texas. Heartbreaking to see those kids, those beautiful little children, and to realize that they're no longer with us and that their families are grieving in a way they never imagined they would. Isn't it up to us to do something about it rather than just issue press releases? Isn't it up to us as legislators to legislate, to try to find solutions? This opportunity, the motion to proceed, opens the door to that possibility. We can return the week after the Memorial Day recess and start in earnest considering amendments offered by Democrats and Republicans which deal with this issue. We owe the American people that. We are elected to this job to legislate, not just to give speeches, but to change the laws in this country to make it safer. This is our chance to do it. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, vote for H.R. 350. This is an important bill in and of itself, but equally important is the fact that it opens a process America is longing to hear that we take seriously. I urge my colleagues to support the motion to proceed on H.R. 350. I yield the floor.